Yo, what up? I'm Russ. Welcome back to the channel. And lately, I've been playing a lot of Code Vein 2. Can you not slice me up in 1,000 pieces, my good sir? Oh my god, he teleports. Oh. The music is kind of funny. Oh god it. I'm at a miss and my nose is running. There's a lot of distraction going on. Yeah, because we're just fighting her instead of, okay, never mind. This is hard. Oh, this is hard. This is really hard. This is really hard. You're not doing anything. Ow, okay, never mind. You are doing stuff. I just didn't see it. Oh, you got three swords now. That's nice. And a whole nother body. That's cool, dude. Who the are you? You're new. Oh my god. Man, why you got so much? You know what? I can just stand here and let her swipe at you the entire time. Okay, never mind. Can you not? Can you not? Can you let me get my off? Now, Code Vein was Bandai Namco's attempt at the quick rising Souls-like action RPG trend back in 2019. And while I didn't play it till like several years later, this indeed was my first foray into the genre. Say what you will about that, I personally liked it. And to be honest, I still think it's a very decent and approachable entry point into this genre of game. With ideas such as the persistent AI partner, the blood code system, and a map, it made jumping into the game a little less daunting in my opinion, and personally helped me get into the genre as a whole to a degree. But if you would have asked me at any point, will we get a Code Vein sequel? No. Okay, maybe not that definitive, but I seriously would have doubted it. So when it suddenly got announced out of nowhere and that it was releasing like fairly soon, needless to say, I was thrown. Like seriously, was anybody really asking for this? But at the same time, I was excited to see what they would bring to the sequel. And I'll say right now, I enjoy playing this. For the most part, nothing is ever perfect. And there were definitely some things that I noticed in this game that slowly sucked the fun out of it for me. And I'm ready to talk about it. So with that being said, let's get into Code Vein 2. So when talking about Code Vein 2, I think it would be better to call this game a successor to the first rather than a direct sequel, because in a couple of aspects, it's a departure from the first game. One instance of that is the fact that this does not take place in the same world as before. Minus a few shared terms, themes, and ideas, this is a completely different universe, meaning you don't have to have played the previous game to hop into this one. At least narrative-wise. And if you have, go you. Congrats, I'm proud of you. Still not gonna change much though. The story takes place in a post-apocalyptic world with humans and revenants, immortal, super-powered vampires basically, on the brink of extinction due to this reoccurring phenomenon called the resurgence, which has been mutating life and causing harm to the entire ecosystem. Now, what exactly is the resurgence? I don't know. And they don't know either. But at some point, whatever it was capable of being sealed away all the way up to about 100 years ago. And then that seal began to weaken. It was at this point, several heroes sacrificed themselves in order to reseal the resurgence, being confined inside cocoons as a result. This too, however, was only temporary. And now the world is once again at risk. Holy shit! Enter you! Dead! That's right. Your character had been killed by the start of the game and is fortunately revived by the character Lou by her sharing half of her heart with you, because you can just do that. She also has the power to time travel.
Time jump is successful.
Gee, thanks.
Damn, girl, how you get all of that in them?
This game is rated T for teen, by the way. This is Lavinia, and she tells you that you must travel back in time to find the keys to unlock the cocoons of all these various heroes, and then defeat them in order to save the world. That sounds kind of backwards, but okay. To be honest, the story here isn't all that much to write home about. It's there, it's simple, it gives you a reason to go out into the world and kill stuff. If anything, it's really just your typical power friendship story by the end of it. And hey, I'm a sucker for those too. The silver lining here though is that I do think the characters, more specifically the heroes that you end up spending nearly all of your time with, are actually fairly likable. Their individual stories, while a lot of them being sad, yes, that's kind of the tone of the whole game, but they do also sometimes find room to show off some fun, maybe even off the wall personalities, a lot more than pretty much anybody else in the game, really.
Pledge your life and let your soul fly. Raise your voice and unleash a war cry and win the golden sun.
Is it cringe? Maybe. But did I like it? Yeah. And it did make me care more about those characters as the journey progressed. If there was one thing about the storytelling, I just wish it was told more through actual scenes than the stone flashbacks they have going on here. What the is going on? This is an RPG, so you know there's a fair amount of talking that's going to be involved. And while that is true, it also brings about some issues with it. And one that is constant throughout the entire game is, I guess, just how the dialogue is like programmed. The pace of the speech from the NPCs is just inconsistent all across the board. In pretty much every conversation, there are these long, awkward pauses in between lines.
I turned them down. Without Jose, my own happiness means nothing. I won't abandon her.
Almost as if the game is waiting for you to hit the confirm button to move the conversation forward. But sometimes it doesn't do that, and they talk at a normal pace. And in those instances, when you're expecting it to pause and it doesn't, you just end up skipping whole lines of dialogue by accident. This happens out in the field too, because for some reason, somebody thought it was a good idea to put scroll dialogue and interact as the same button. Who thought that was okay? Choices in dialogue are also present here that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. The answers you're able to give are usually just variations of the same thing, making the options pointless. The story only proceeds one way, even with the multiple endings. They're set up in a way where you hit each one in a linear fashion. As long as you keep playing the game, you can't miss them. So then I ask, why even go through the effort of faking like you're a decision-based RPG when you're not? Just be what you are and tell the story you're trying to tell.
Seems you're the real deal.
All right, so let's talk about the biggest addition here, which is the open world.
Bandai Namco really wanted more of that Elden Ring money, huh?
The map itself is divided up into several zones, each fairly unique from the last in terms of design. There's the sunken city with its toppled metropolitan architecture, the dense undead forest, and the headache that is the corroded scar, as well as a couple others. And after you get access to the open world, you're of course able to tackle whatever part of the map you like. Although there does kind of seem to be a preferred order, story and difficulty wise, but that order also seems to contradict what it looks like the preferred order is logistically. It's weird. If you play it, you'll probably see what I'm talking about. The whole map in general does have quite a bit to discover, and you can easily spend several hours hopping all over the map, uncovering more of it, collecting upgrades, praying for power-ups, hunting for ingredients, or visiting random locations that pique your interest. Let me go to church, dog. Because of the whole time travel gimmick, you really have two maps to explore. One in the present, one in the past. Routes and areas may be closed off at one point in time, whereas in another, they are easily traversable, encouraging you to come back to places at both points in time in order to fully explore the map. Of course, you're not alone out here. Mutated horrors scour all over the land doing all kinds of weird shit, honestly. From fighting each other to outright praising the Lord.
Because the devil is defeated and God be praised.
but all of them are certainly still ingrained with that f around and find out mentality.
Is this?
Are you serious? Oh my
Yeah.
god. However, so are you. Well, at least some of you. There was definitely times where I ran from the smoke unapologetically. Naturally, you have your standard light and heavy attacks and a dodge that frankly feels a little underpowered normally. Like it's a little too slow to keep up with the speed of a number of enemies and bosses consistently that you come across. But if you manage to get the best version of it, that problem goes away. And it's honestly kind of cracked. But in addition to that, you have access to special abilities attached to the weapon you're using, and these can be swapped in and out to do a variety of different things, from an up-close attack barrage to a ranged elemental attack to buffing you in some sort of capacity. Then there's the other set of equipment, for lack of a better term, called forme, and there's two: offensive and defensive. A lot of these tend to come in the form of some sort of weapon or shield, although there are some that are like abilities that you can equip. Side note, if you like parrying, this is where you find it. Although in my opinion, the parry system in this game is absolutely terrible. Using these things uses up a resource called Ecor, basically this game's version of magic. Along those same lines, stamina is of course still a thing that you need to be mindful of, as well as your health. If you take some damage, you can heal yourself a limited number of times before, well, you either clutch it and survive, or you gotta start over. However, the number of regenerations you have, as well as the potency, can be upgraded by finding specific items scattered all over the world, sometimes making you do crazy stuff to get them. Lastly, there's a special attack in your arsenal called a drain attack, which normally you can hit an enemy with it under the right circumstances and replenish some of your Ecor. Pretty simple. However, if you manage to hit it on a staggered enemy, you get a more critical attack that does loads more damage than normal and also gives you this cool cinematic in the process, as long as the camera cooperates. But one thing you'll probably immediately notice is how long these things can take after numerous times of doing them. So just prepare for these to get old pretty quick. As you can probably tell, there's no lack of combat in this game. There's something around damn near every corner, and they will f you up if you are not careful. Some of these enemies feel like pseudo bosses at times, as they'll give you a harder time than some of the actual bosses. Speaking of which, oh, word? That's cool. I like how she has guns on her. Ow, not the sweet. Okay, stop kicking me. She's ice skating? When it comes to the main bosses in the game, I genuinely think they're all unique, memorable, and borderline fair. That part is questionable.
Prepare to die.
There's just about to be a double fight. Oh my god. Yeah, some of these dudes will really test your mental composure. But the overall sentiment does extend to some of the side bosses too. Like one has a gimmick tied to completely exploring his dungeon in order to have an easier time beating him. However, creativity like that isn't as prevalent to most of the lesser side bosses as you'd probably like. As a matter of fact, it's here where some of the cracks begin to show, and why I feel like this game was probably made on a tight budget in order for it to be released like at all. For one, a lot of the bosses are just pumped up versions of regular enemies. You end up seeing those enemies a lot more than you probably expect to, and it really kills their uniqueness factor as a boss encounter. And second is the sheer amount of recycled bosses. It's alarming. You'll fight some of these guys like 3 or 4 times throughout the game.
So this is one of Idris's routines.
Oh my fucking no! I hate this thing. This thing sucks. Even the big main story driven bosses are repeated at one point. Again, almost like they ran out of time or budget to add more. And that kind of plays into the lack of enemy variety present here as well. And I don't want to say that like there is none, because that's not true. There are different enemy types. You got the big guy, You got the other big guy. You got the guy giving out free hugs. Oh God, that scared the living hell out of me. The one who thinks he's in Soul Calibur, the one who sucked at Call of Duty, and the one who had a failed MMA career. Ow! Ass. Amongst a few others. But I noticed that you do find yourself fighting a lot of the same kinds of enemies. They're just reskinned to match the aesthetic of the area that you're in. Now, throughout like 95% of the game, you will have the option to bring a companion along with you. I know for hardcore Souls-like players, that is like absolute sacrilege. I get it. But it is one of the reasons I find this franchise to be one of the most approachable in the genre. However, like I said, it's an option. You have the choice to go it alone, even with a selected partner. They really doubled down on this mechanic, as companions, in addition to fighting alongside you, can now be assimilated to provide you with different buffs. As a matter of fact, some of the companions you come across can only be used in a simulated mode. So you still sort of get that vindication of taking on the game solo, just a little bit differently. It's almost like you're just choosing another piece of equipment to take with you. But if you do change your mind, you always have that physical assistance available to you at the push of, well, 2 buttons, giving you have a capable companion to do so. And the game really feels designed around that. A lot of these enemies and bosses downright feel unfair solo, for the sole reason that they give you damn near no chance to breathe. The partners, at the very least, provide a distraction so you can regroup and see what's going on. Whoa, what the f is happening? As well as they still provide buffs even when they're not assimilated to you through what's called link traits. As long as this blue portion of your health bar isn't completely destroyed. Dude, you're literally almost dead. Can you just comment? Oh my God, I'm sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. The one unfair thing is that they can't die now, which I guess is why their damage isn't permanent unless they deal the finishing blow. Now on the flip side, they can also be kind of dumb. For starters, they don't navigate well. If you do anything more than run, they tend to get lost or trapped, which normally, no problem, they can just teleport to you automatically if you get too far away from them, except when they don't, for whatever reason, and then leave you to deal with whatever BS is around the next corner. Even in the rare instance when they get blown off the map. Same thing. Dude, just drop down. To circumvent this, you can just assimilate them and bring them back out, but now you're leaving yourself wide open in the process. And if you're in a fight, we've already established that enemies are not that generous. And to go further down the rabbit hole of their stupidity, there are other times where they are literally just in the way because you can't phase through them and they don't take a hint to move, bitch, get out the way. But despite how you feel about them, I do feel like they are given much more of a reason to be used, at least through the narrative. A lot of objectives are intimately linked to certain companions, making it feel kind of wrong to just leave them out. Even the side quests or extra places you visit may have a character story entwined with them, encouraging you to bring said character along to get the full tale. And that in turn does somewhat make you form a bond with them as you play.
We've been spotted.
Yeah, no Now, with this being an RPG, choice is a common thread in this game, whether it makes sense or not. I mentioned the questionable dialogue choices earlier, but it doesn't stop there. When it comes to what your actual purpose is out here in these decrepit streets, you pretty much always have a choice of main objectives to tackle, which some of those even give you several objectives within them, and side quests as well if you decide to engage with them. And aside from the obligatory fetch quest, most of the time these objectives lead you to a dungeon that it requires you to clear, a lot of which are pretty simple and straightforward, but there are a number that are fairly intricate and cool too, though they all basically have a boss at the end of them and rewards that left a bit to be desired in my case. However, some of these can be easily missed as early as the start of the game if you aren't thorough in your exploration, because there's nothing intrinsically leading you to them aside from your morbid curiosity. And some of these establish more context and lore to the world, as I mentioned before, because characters will reminisce about the environment you've found yourself in. While the quality of them can vary from dungeon to dungeon and quest to quest, I appreciate the effort of putting so many in here just to give you something to chase besides the main story. Now, this is a fairly decent sized world. You don't really want to just run all the time. You want to be able to get to places at a decent pace. So, how do you do that? Well, they give you a bike that also has the ability to glide. And frankly, I think it kind of sucks. For starters, this thing has no goddamn horsepower. I couldn't break the non-existent speed limit on this damn thing if I wanted to. And for the love of God, do not stop on a hill. Secondly, it can be really frustrating to control when maneuvering in tight turns. You're better off getting off, reorienting, and getting back on at times. And lastly, it has a pretty decent track record of making the game basically go into cardiac arrest trying to load assets as you move throughout the world. Thankfully, fast travel is easy and pretty abundant through the bonfires, dubbed missiles here, so you usually don't have to travel too far from an already visited location at least. Now, the thread of choice continues into how you make your character. Did I mention this was an RPG? While not having complete freedom, creating your ideal anime persona for the adventure can be fun, and there's still quite a bit there to kit out your character however you want. You may just end up spending a few hours cumulatively just going through and tweaking all the options that are available to you. And with that, another upside is that you're not beholden to the decisions you make. If you want to switch up the vibe or something doesn't look quite right out in the game world, you can go back at almost any time with no consequence and change whatever you feel like needs to be changed, which I was very appreciative of. And once you get that right and set out into the world, you'll soon find that there's a lot to how you manage your character. It can be a whole college course of its own if you really want it to be. And what really separates this game from other Souls-likes is the blood code system. The blood codes serve as the foundation of your character's build. As contrary to other Souls games, you don't get the choice of leveling up specific attributes to focus on one area over another. The basic strengths and weaknesses of your character are set by the blood code that you choose, each differing from the last. You can sort of think of them as jobs or classes that you pick and then build off of. Granted, you can equip anything you want any way you want, but if you don't have the right attributes, it may not work out for you doing so. So on the one hand, I find it streamlines the upgrade process as it eliminates the guesswork of what you should be building up to make your character a certain way. If you decide to change your playstyle at any point, it's just a simple switch of a blood code instead of having to go back and reallocate points or something of the like. On the other hand, that means you're at the mercy of what you find. If you don't do your due diligence and explore, talk, and complete side quests, you may not get the blood code to support your idealistic build. Now, in addition to blood codes, there's still a lot of stuff. Boosters are probably the next important thing to talk about. They are exactly what they're called. They boost certain stats as well as give certain additional bonuses to your character. These honestly play a big role in getting your character build to where you want it to be, as you're able to further manipulate the attributes you need to make things work by attaching the right boosters. Moving on to the weapons, there are several different classes ranging from swords, to halberds, to heavy weapons, to these hands assisted by swords, and others. All of which can be enhanced with the appropriate materials and customized with special abilities that you either purchase or find out in the world. After that, you have the aforementioned forma, and then the jails. On the surface, they're just sick ass drain attacks, but they also have an effect on your stats and give different bonuses between them, and needs to be given thought as to which one fits your build the best. The same with the rest of the too. All of these elements need to be like pieced together in a specific way to get the character that you want to play with, if you care that much. It's almost like you have a box, right? And while you're allowed to break and poke holes in it, it's in your best interest to see what you can put in the confines of the box itself. That is how you're going to get the most out of your character build. Now, I will also say, the game, to its credit, does put forth the effort to explain these things to you, but because of the sheer amount of actual stuff, it can be kind of overwhelming as tutorials just pop up on the screen constantly, explaining sometimes the tiniest of things. Like every screen, special item, or action you come across for the first time has a tutorial on it, even if you just hit it by mistake. And when I was reading them, I didn't feel like I was getting a good grasp of what it was trying to tell me, aside from like simple combat stuff, until it was actually time for me to like really dive into those systems and figure it out. With all the systems at play here though, I never felt it necessary to engage with all of them to get through the game. The basics are honestly enough. I barely messed with the weapon customization or even changed my loadout all that much, and I hardly had any boosters till like near the end of the game. So once I found what I liked, I pretty much stuck with it the entire time. I'm really only switching blood codes to see what fit me best, and I didn't have too many issues getting through the game. Excuse me? What is going on? Ow, my face! Oh my god, why will you do this to me?
Death.
I am your wife, god damn it.
Death.
The platform of choice for my playthrough was PC, and while for the most part things were okay, or at least tolerable, you know, nothing broke, I didn't have to restart anything, but the move to an open world definitely seemed to have taken a toll on the team and their ability to optimize the game's performance because, well, it doesn't feel optimal. There are of course small things that you can nitpick, like the janky vertical hair physics, how I glitch an enemy through a wall, objects that are placed with no respect to geometry, how character clothing is always just clipping or glitching out, or how some scenes just look weird. Like, yeah, I just penetrated this woman's heart, and I feel like more should be happening here besides my hand just clipping through it. You know, it looks kind of weird. My hand just sitting there. Like, I don't know, blood should be splurting everywhere. I mean, I know it's a teen game, so they say, but something else should be happening in that situation. I don't know, whatever. Asset loading is also a major problem in this game, as pop-in is quite prevalent everywhere, even in the cutscenes, surprisingly.
What is this place?
And the frame rate also drops enough to be noticeable. A lot of the time just out of nowhere. But especially when it comes to, like I said before, that damn bike, or when there's water on the screen. The game sometimes can barely handle it. Speaking more positively, visually, I do like the art style and direction going on. There's a lot of cool stuff here, whether intentionally or not. And I really do dig the character designs that they came up with, big bosomed woman aside. I think the animations across the board are very well done, especially on various enemies and bosses. This ain't the Olympics, what are you doing? Oh my goodness. And that extends to the cutscenes as well. When they run properly, they can exude personality, charm, and just straight coolness. The world itself, I think, also looks okay to good for the most part. The forested areas, I say, are probably the best with all the dense foliage, and by far, I think the water they put in this game is the best looking part of it, which is probably why it bogs the game down. But somehow it manages to hold itself together. Now, I do want to talk about the music a bit because the soundtrack for the original Code Vein is one of the things that stuck with me after I finished that game, even to this day. Several memorable tracks come to mind, one of which you may be hearing right now, and they instantly transport me back to a time of, let's just say, joyous pain. Wow! What the? The The main composer of that game has since went on to be a part of projects such as Demon Slayer and even Tekken 8. So some pretty high profile stuff there. And with his return to Code Vein 2, I was hoping to be somewhat enthralled by the composition. And in the end, I will say that I was a little underwhelmed with it. Now, don't get me wrong, the music is still very good. There are themes for almost everyone, everything, everywhere, and multiple arrangements of several of them. Which I do commend, but ultimately a lot of it didn't stick with me. And minus the few examples I gave, the ones you do remember, either because they're just used a lot. What the f are you? Ow. You're kind of ugly and scaring me. Or, oh my God.
Is this the end?
Being a bitch, that's what you're doing. Before actually looking into the music, you couldn't tell me that areas, dungeons, or bosses had specific themes, besides the ones that really do something different with instrumentation. And I do believe that the open nature of the game does contribute to this lack of impactful musical identity, in my opinion, because you can spend hours in an area listening to the same theme over and over, and it starts to make you numb and everything begins to sound the same. And some of the cool stuff just goes right over your head. Despite its high points, I think the soundtrack took a slight step back, but none of that means bad. A slight step back from great is still good. Bad is something worth getting sued over by a dead man.
Boo! Man destroying a classic!
After all that's been said, is Code Vein 2 something you should check out? I think that depends on a few things. If you are a veteran Souls RPG player, it's not going to compare to those games. So no, unless you're just really into the anime aesthetic they have here, or just curious about another Souls game, you're probably not going to get much out of this. Now, if you're someone who's never played a Souls-like game, are curious about trying to get into the genre without jumping into the deep end, and dig or at least can get around the anime look of this game, I think it's a very decent and most of all approachable game. Combat is probably the simplest thing about the game, but it works. The partners do a lot to keep the combat frustration down. The open world, for the most part, isn't too confusing or overwhelming, and even the smaller dungeons within it are fairly straightforward. With the addition of a mini-map to track your steps, it's fairly easy to avoid getting turned around. And the character progression, on the one hand, yeah, that can be a really complicated thing if you really dive into it. On the surface, it streamlines the process of you simply getting stronger, as it takes away the work of having to carefully manage the points you allocate to different stats. Now on the flip side, the story is there. Minor annoyances can build up to take away from the experience, like the repetitive boss encounters or the AI mishaps, etc. And be prepared for performance hiccups. During my time with the game, there wasn't a single play session where some sort of distracting graphical glitch or performance hiccup did not occur. And that's disappointing. It didn't ruin the game for me, but man, did it lower the quality of the experience. But they are steadily releasing patches for the game, so who knows? By the time you watch this video, maybe a lot of those issues have been ironed out. I would like to hope so. Now, personally, I don't recommend this at full price. Knock it down about 10 to 20 bucks. Then we're talking about something. But the quality that's presented here does not scream 70 bucks to me. So if you see a price drop on it, that's when I would jump on this game, if you care to see how it is. Lastly, if you do decide to jump into this franchise, I'd like to bring up the question of whether you should go with the first game or the second game. I'd like to hear you guys' opinions on this too. Personally, I think I recommend the first game. It's been a while since I played it, but I remember it being a much more tighter and cleaner experience. I know part of that is because it's level based as opposed to like the giant open world, but those levels too had so much more identity to them. And I also remember combat just feeling a little bit better in the first game. I don't know. Tell me what you think, and tell me your thoughts on Code Vein 2 if you played it. What's your favorite character? What character build did you go with? What order did you complete the game in? Tell me all of that. And if you haven't played it, did this video help you? Because that's partially what I'm trying to do here, in addition to, you know, just sharing my experiences with different games. I'm trying to help those of you who might think like me and, you know, want additional encouragement or discouragement. So let loose in the comments. I'm always reading them. And as always, thank you for making it to the end of this video. If you liked it and want to see more content like it, as well as help the channel grow, feel free to subscribe, like, share the video. It's very much appreciated over here. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me. I'm Russ. I'll catch you in the next one. Later.